Okay, so next up, we're going to hear for the next Lunch and Learn. Hopefully you're eating your lunch, everyone that's on, making sure you're keeping your tummy full. We're going to hear from James Tremaine from Achieve 3000 and also Rick Lippert. Rick, I hope I said your last name right. I'm excited about Achieve. I just finished an article, James, on what's going on with the overwhelm of teachers. We just ran a survey. 74% of teachers are reporting being overwhelmed or burnt out. So I'm trying to really get people to look at high value digital curriculum, for real. Let's just not Google Docs our way to glory. So I'm a huge supporter. So I'm turning it over to you guys. Can you screen share, James?
Yeah, I sure can. Let me share my screen. Let's make sure everything's working, and then I'll go into presentation mode. So tell me if you see my PowerPoint.
Yeah, I see it now. Yay. Okay,
let's hope this works. Let's see if I've got my technology down.
Yeah, I see you and I see Rick and I see your screen in full screen.
Awesome. That's half the battle right there.
Yeah, okay, over to you.
Well, I definitely appreciate you all giving us a little bit of time here today. We're definitely honored to be here with you guys and not only just listen and see what is going on right out in the world today that we live in, but really try to frame what we're going to talk about with Achieve is into the conversation and how we are working with districts to help them solve some of these challenges. And it's really great that we're coming right after ClassLink because, part of the issue, one of the biggest challenges is logistics of being able to manage instruction remotely. And integration and seamless integration, the easier you can make the user experience, the more important that is. So Rick and I are going to go through a little bit of information on Achieve. I'm going to kick it over to Rick to go through some of the company history. He's been with us a long time and can really help lead you through the company history and what we focus on. And then we'll focus a little bit on some of our solutions and how they help address some of these challenges. And hopefully at the end, we'll have a little bit of time for Q&A as well. And by the way, along the way, pay attention because we are going to have a little contest at the end. There's going to be a pop quiz. And Rick has a few excellent Doug Fisher books that you can win today at the end. And so you'll see that come up here in a little while. Rick, I'll kick it over to you.
Thanks, James. And this young lady here looks maybe like many of your students currently. They're doing school at home. They've got their breakfast right there. And what a world we live in. I happen to have a high school son who is a junior who was supposed to go back in Conejo Valley School District here in Ventura County last week. And due to the COVID outbreak and governor's mixed messages, he's not back. And I know a lot of you have children at home. You're trying to be an educator and a parent as well. So anyway, I am Rick Lippert. I'm the Senior Regional Director. I work with Central California up to the border where James takes off in Northern California. And as James said, we really appreciate partnering with districts throughout the state of California. And LeiLani, this is my second opportunity to work with you. I did get a chance in person before everything shut down last year. Anyway, I'd like to go forward and talk a little bit about the mission and vision of Achieve. If you haven't heard about Achieve 3000, we've been in the marketplace for many years, and our mission is to work together with school districts, educators, principals, teachers, students to unlock their potential. And that means all students. We want to stretch the gifted learner while we also help to accelerate learning for those students, especially those subgroup students who might be falling behind. And last week, I was talking with some of my educator friends, and yesterday I happened to be talking with the assistant superintendent in Bakersfield City School District, who has spent time in Sacramento talking with the educational institutes of the state. And one of the things that struck me that he said is that one of the issues that Bakersfield City is really putting a lot of effort in is the transition back into school. And he made the point that many students coming out of elementary school have never been in a junior high classroom. Many students coming out of preschool have never been in a kindergarten all year, and there's going to have to be planning for transition. So one of the things that we like to think of ourselves is a partner that can help to make that transformation of literacy that has to happen. And we're very sensitive to the fact that it's a stressful time for educators. And by the way, we now have a math program. So if you do know of Achieve 3000, and I know LeiLani, you know the program as a literacy solution, we did adopt a math solution this year. So I mentioned that we're not a new company. We've been out for over 20 years working with many districts across the country. Last year, we actually worked district-wide with Clark County School District in Las Vegas. Some of you might know that's one of the largest in the Western United States. I personally work with Bakersfield City School District, where we partner with all 45 of their schools. As I mentioned, I was talking with their assistant superintendent this week. And one of the things he said, by the way, is that the governor is very concerned about the learning gap slide and the need to accelerate during summer. And in Bakersfield, we actually have a summer program called Summer Intensive. That's an actual solution that Achieve provides, but we're going to have all students able to access our content, both digital content in class or at home, in order to accelerate over the summer. So I know James has worked with San Jose Unified, he works with Twin Rivers, I work with Newman Crow's Landing, and we work with many other school districts throughout Northern and Central California, including San Francisco.
Yeah, and I think the only thing I'll add here, Rick, is in regards to that, right? We're seeing a lot of districts in the last 6 months. It was kind of gangbusters, right? People were calling up, they needed help. And San Francisco is a great example of someone that just, a handful of months ago was not a partner of ours yet. And the reason they came aboard was really outside of how a lot of people historically have thought about us. It wasn't just about literacy acceleration. It wasn't about helping kids increase their standardized test scores. All those things that used to be the things that we were worried about because we were measured against them. It was literally about how do we stay connected to our kids. So our solutions go way beyond just accelerating literacy and accelerating math. And it even gets into how do you stay connected to your kids? How do you stay connected to your teachers? How do you keep kids connected? Because right now, that might be a bigger issue. And dealing with the trauma that COVID has brought on may be a bigger issue for you. And we're here just to let you know that we can help with all those things as well. Because our systems really lend well to be keeping kids connected, not only to one another, but to their teachers and also to teachers to the families.
Yeah, it's a really good point. I know that one of the things we're proud of is that we're partnering with a lot of other mission-based companies and organizations, like the Center for College and Career Readiness. We're concerned about those students who are falling further behind and may not be college career ready. They may not be able to graduate. I know that the number of students in high school getting Fs in LAUSD was so high that they're basically not wanting to provide the letter F as a grade on students' transcripts. We're also partnered with companies like ClassLink. You heard from Nicole. We do great work with ClassLink, a seamless partner for us. Metametrics, some of you know, is the company that developed the Lexall framework. They are a partner, and Metametrics wrote a diagnostic assessment for our Achieve literacy solution called Level Set. We now have a quantile assessment built into our new math programs provided by Metametrics. NWEA has partnered with Achieve 3000. If you happen to use the MAP assessment, we have written reports that helps teachers be actionable with the data they get in the RIT band assessments and reports. So lots of great mission partners that we have at Achieve 3000. And to James' point, one of the things we're doing within our curriculum is we're writing more content that has a social emotional impact to help students and teachers have those conversations that need to be happening right now.
And I think the only thing I'd add here too, Rick, that a lot of folks don't realize when they see a slide like this is these aren't just people that we're partnering on the back end. Organizations like the Successful Practices Network, the Career for College and Career Readiness, the Center for Career, these are partners of ours that are providing services down to our clients as part of the partnership.
Yeah.
So being able to get exposed to the Doug Fishers of the world and the Hatties of the world and the people that are really the movers and shakers that are really helping go out and having the conversations and find out how do we solve these new challenges. Those are resources that when you become a partner of ours become attached to you as well. And we're doing all kinds of things to keep that education going. So when you think about professional development partnership, it really goes way beyond product training. In fact, I would argue that the consulting and the other things that we do throughout the year for our partners is actually probably more important than the product training itself.
That's a really good point. I know Bill Daggett on Successful Practice Networks is on the board of Achieve 3000 and is constantly working with us and doing webinars for customers to help keep them current on trends in education. So just to frame who we are as far as a company and what our digital learning solutions are, the Achieve 3000 learning platform is entirely digital. We actually had one of our best years ever in 20 years last year because there was such a need for digital curriculum, obviously, and there still is. So just to frame it, and then James is going to go in more detail, we have for those students at the preschool, K, first, second grade level where students are learning to read, we have a foundational literacy program called Smarty Ants. Some of you may remember the old Leapfrog, LeapPad program from the early 2000s. That program became the genesis for a fully web-based research program called Smarty Ants, and Achieve now has the ability to market that in the northern continent. I also want to mention that has Spanish support, and we do have a Spanish version called Smarty Ants Espanol for foundational literacy. The core of Achieve 3000 is the Achieve 3000 literacy program. It's typically used for students who are now reading and are ready to read for content. So 3rd grade to 12th grade, Achieve Literacy's goal is to provide an opportunity for every student to reach their potential, especially helping accelerate those students who need to make up ground. So we call it our literacy acceleration tool. And by the way, we have an adult version of this called Spark. I'm very pleased that I am working with the 35 prisons in the state of California with the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation. They are putting our Spark adult version in every prison educational system in the state of California to help those students who are undergoing rehabilitation be successful readers so that they can be productive members of society when they return. We have recently acquired a program called Actively Learn, which is not so much a course as a curriculum platform, and it allows teachers of English language arts, science, and social studies to help students go deeper into learning about those topics. And it takes content from multiple places and puts it together and gives teachers the ability to look at lessons that are pre-built for them, but they can also change instructions, add questions, delete questions, and put scaffolded notes to support student reading. So we have a really wonderful, deep learning, critical thinking platform called Actively Learn. And then, as I mentioned earlier, we've added a new math program, which is turning out to be extremely popular given the distance learning that's happening, because as a parent, for example, a high school student, when he's doing Algebra 2, I have no way to help my son with that program. I can't even remember my formulas. So this acts like an intelligent tutor, and it will assess the student to find out where they are in their quantile measurement of math skills. And then the teacher can assign specific lessons that they're instructing, or potentially assign material that the student needs to backfill. So that is the suite of the Achieve 3000 solutions. I'm going to turn it over to James, who's going to give a little deeper dive into each of them. And
well,
by
yeah,
the way,
in sake of time, we really don't have time to go into a deep dive. So I'm going to stay here and just kind of reiterate some of the key intents, right? What are we trying to solve? What problems we're trying to solve with these platforms, so folks understand that we've got some synchronicity between these, but also each platform is designed with some specific intent. So it's kind of foundational literacy, pre-K through 2, when kids are learning to read, and Smarty Ants supports both English and Spanish literacy. So if you've got a dual program, you can use that program for both programs for foundational. We've got literacy acceleration, which is all about being able to understand where kids are, meet them right where they are today, because it's differentiated content. and allow them. It provides a cycle where you can benchmark them at the front and then put them in front of content that's meaningful to them, and then continue to measure them for growth. And that cycle allows the teachers to see how their kids are performing, where they're falling short as far as skills, and be able to provide those teaching moments. And that cycle is what allows for that accelerated growth. And we see 2-3 times, sometimes more than that, growth in a given calendar year through the use of that platform. Actively Learn is really about deep learning, right? It is a content platform, but it's how the content's designed. It is designed to, what I say, force engagement. And right now in COVID time, Actively Learn has been flying off the shelf in a sense, because it addresses both the need to engage kids and understand how engaged they are. And it also provides a level of connectiveness that I think we didn't even realize how valuable it was from that perspective until COVID hit. It wasn't really designed specifically for that, but a lot of the tool set in it provides teachers and students the ability to stay connected 24/7. I feel like we're flashing back to the anytime, anywhere learning days, where those were the buzzwords. It just so happens it does an excellent job at that. And so it's been a very valuable tool. And San Francisco Unified is a great example. They basically said, we don't know another tool in the market that does what we need right now other than this. We don't feel like we can live without it right now. Yeah. And then math is all about math acceleration, practicing those skills, being able to benchmark kids, practice the things that they're falling short in, and have the teacher be able to give them a tool and assign work to them based on the teacher scope and sequence for math, and know that it's going to allow the student to practice those skills almost like they have a tutor with them over their shoulder, but it's the system doing it for the student and then providing teachers with those details. Now I'm going to exit out of here, and we were going to try to go, but we just don't have enough time to go into each solution in more detail. But I do want to make sure we at least get to the quiz so you guys have an opportunity to win some prizes. I'm going to jump way through my slides down to where my quiz is.
And by the way, if you have any questions, please feel free to put them into the chat. And what we're going to do is we're going to give away 3 Visible Learning for Literacy books by Doug Fisher, Nancy Fry, and John Hattie. And if you are the first person to put the answer into chat, we will then take your answer, and then you'll send us your email, and I will mail you a copy of this book. So we thought we'd just try to have some fun with it, LeiLani, because let's face it, COVID can keep everybody from having some good, fun interactions with each other. So James, what's our first question? By the way, everybody get ready to put it in the chat.
All right, get ready to type. Question number 1. What company developed Achieve 3000's diagnostic assessment that provides a pre, interim, and post assessment in Achieve 3000 literacy and math?
Boy, we've got somebody flew in already. And they put D. Ann Cruz, you are correct. It is Metametrics. Ann has good listening skills. She heard me mention that in the overview. All right, excellent. All right. Ann, be sure to send me your email, Ann, and I will go ahead and send you that book. Question number 2.
Everybody ready? Achieve 3000's literacy and math solutions, Smarty Ants, Achieve 3000 literacy, Actively Learn, and Achieve 3000 math, and Spark covers what grade levels?
This could be a trick question, by the way.
Oh, we got a right answer. Jessica's the winner.
Jessica, well done. Jessica had pre-K to adult. The adult version is that Spark version I mentioned is in the California Department of Corrections, and it is our adult learner version of Achieve Literacy. So Tim, thank you for your attempt, but Jessica, you get the prize. Please send me your email. And the last question, James.
Which of the following benefits do Achieve 3000 solutions provide? And we've got a right answer. LM is the first one to get the right answer, Rick.
Okay, very good. we want to just say if there are any questions, we'd be happy to entertain them. LeiLani, we always want to be respectful of time. So those of you who did win today, that would be Jessica and LM. Please send an email to me. You see it on the screen there, and I will forward the book to you. That's loose. Congratulations. LeiLani, we'll let you maybe look for questions or turn it back over to you.
Okay, everyone. Well, that was exciting. It's so hard for me not to play.
Yep. We all want to have fun.
Yeah, I don't get to play because I'm not really, representing the school. But listen, you guys, excellent job. Thank you so much. I'm going to double check for questions and then share my own screen back up.
And I'll go ahead and stop my share so you can have control again.
Yeah. Okay, I got it. Okay, so hopefully I'm sharing my screen again. Yeah. Okay, so this is really a good thing. So Rick and James, stay on for 1 second. So essentially your technology is dead center in my discussion about how everything changed. Using space differently, time differently, and moving all the way into hybrid logistics. Are you having people have those questions with you about teacher time use?
Yes.
Because really, that is the crux of the matter, right?
Yeah. How do we give teachers back time, right? And allow them to provide solid instruction in this chaotic world we live in. Now, it's interesting is our solutions always, especially our literacy platform, always tended to give time back because it's about different, the text is differentiated. So when you think about the job of a teacher looking out the classroom and there's 25, 30 kids in the class, they're all reading on different grade levels. The responsibility of teachers to be able to source content to each student where they currently are in their lexile growth or their literacy growth is such a burden for teachers. It's not scalable, right? It's not possible.
Yeah.
And so you have to have tools that will do it for you. And that was always the magic of Achieve 3000 Literacy, which used to be our only product years ago. And Achieve 3000 was both the product and our company name. We've had to differentiate that a little bit because we have multiple solutions now that are designed to do different things. But yes, absolutely. And what we're finding is in this remote world, it's even more important to be able to give teachers time back and still prevent that slide and accelerate growth. But we're also finding that there's other unique challenges that have surfaced that are direct fits for solutions like our Actively Learn product.
Yeah.
And so it's that mix thereof oftentimes that's the right solution.
Yeah. And I don't know that you guys will admit this, but and most schools don't admit this, but being an outside national media and research company, I'm kind of in your face about this stuff. And that is the issue is how you're using teachers. So when I get into this about hybrid logistics, I'm just going to say I've had too many superintendents over the last 8 months tell me that they're witnessing the death of whole group. So we're in this muddy zone of people don't have the time, or they're Zoom meeting everybody all day and people are exhausted. But the structure of bureaucracy, the way we've always had it, is administrators and teachers tend to look at, it's a pyramid, right? Like people decide the general curriculum, the standards, push them down, and then everything behind that closed door in the classroom forward, even if it's hybrid or virtual, is up to the teacher. And so they are the bottleneck then in terms of the distribution and access. And what I mean by that is that as long as you're focused on whole group only, and this is where you guys come in, you can't get to full personalization unless you're using a technology like yours.
That's right.
So you're in this middle space as adaptive digital curriculum where you still bring back the teacher into the loop. But now you've automated the function of the distribution of some of the bits of knowledge and the interaction with the knowledge to return to the teacher enough time to actually eyeball kids, personalize for kids, catch up the ones that are like, well, how come you haven't logged in for 5 days? You'll have to call them, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's an interesting time because I am trying to make people look at the higher value software. Like the Google Docsing your way to glory is not going to cut it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
LeiLani, if I could add, Dr. Moreno was talking earlier about how much time and effort and money his district is putting towards helping parents and helping families. And our new math program acts as an intelligent tutor. And I wasn't kidding. I can't help my son with his math. How many parents are out there that cannot help their son, daughter, child with math? And our math program guides students through when they have a problem to solve and understand that. So we happened to build it that way, and then COVID hit, and it's exploded in use because the parents now are being asked to be educators.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I also think people thought they don't have the money for that. Like superintendent's like, I just bought $1 bajillion worth of machines. Like, go away because I can't afford to buy all the software too. Well, CARES Act created the $7.5 billion uptick in spend last year. Yeah. CARES Act 2 is 4 times the size.
That's right.
Yep.
And if anybody comes to me and says they have a problem with money in education, I think I'm going to lose my mind. Because there's more money right now for K-12 than I've ever seen. It's just majestic.
I am so glad you brought this up because here's what that means to all of us. It's not going to be here forever. We have to do long-term planning right now. That's right. So what happened last year when COVID hit was short-term planning. We got to plug holes. We got to figure out how to feed kids. We got to do Wi-Fi on buses. We got to do all this stuff. And it was very reactive. And even some of the purchasing that happened throughout the rest of the year was somewhat reactive.
Yeah.
As we come into this next year, we're preparing for 2021-22. All of the experts are saying, guys, we're going to probably have a deficit in 2023. Plan now, get the right solutions, get the right mix of solutions, make sure they integrate holistically with your existing environment so that if we are in this crazy hybrid world for the next 2 years, you're prepared. And do long-term contracts. Do 3-year terms with your vendors. Vet them and do 3-year terms because the money might not be there a year from now or 2 years from now. So buy it for as long as you can while the money's here. And it sounds crazy because I wasn't even thinking about this until about 2 days ago when this came down through the political system in the state.
Yeah.
Right. I wasn't thinking about this because I'm a sales rep and I was thinking, how can I book a bigger deal? It never even entered my mind yet. But the state's sending it downstream that way.
Yeah, there's going to be some fear factor with regards to that. But I want to point out, you guys should stay on for what I'm going to talk about next with hybrid logistics with everybody. So, hey, all you educators that are on the line right now, this is going to get interesting because what James just said is, you've got a window right now where you can get the money. But after that, there could be a cliff. We don't like cliffs. So I'm going to talk about the true change that is going to use teachers in a service mechanism behind. In other words, we're looking at a restructure and huge number of reasons behind that. Okay, I'm going to have you guys turn your cameras off and go forward with this. Thank you for being there. Do pop on and comment at will. All right, so more than a year ago at our national gathering, we rolled out this game called, the Twister game to show the future of how learning could be structured. Dallas ISD kind of went nuts about it. They loved it so much. They wanted to take the whole board home and all the instructions. Basically, what you're looking at is a restructure that's not new. It's just going to be done differently. And there's a lot of schools already looking at this sort of way of distributing learning. And that is organizing around a virtual or real physical homeroom called the house. And then flighting students out in correct on-pace cohorts into a intersection with whole group teaching, small group teaching as needed. So get rid of the idea in future, potentially, where there's always classrooms and there's a teacher in there. Okay. Teachers are maybe in offices now. They're checking dashboards of kids that are remote. Things are happening here, there, and everywhere. But they're flighted out in the correct exact moment to meet up with kids in a classroom. A lot of the way corporate America has been doing it for 20 years now. Like if you worked in a big company, you had to reserve the meeting space. And other than that, you were in your office or your cubicle. And then you reserve the meeting space. So now you can have multi-grades, multi-subjects. Each student is pacing along the digital pathway. It's not necessarily competency based because that's not going to work for a lot of places. It's still the same curriculum you've already had, but instead of each teacher negotiating that or saying what they're going to do every day, it's already a normalized path. There can be side paths or whatever for individual students, but it's a normalized path and kids are pacing it independently so that you can truly personalize and you can truly have teacher attention pulled back to the students who are pacing slow. So for example, you're looking at this twister board in the middle here, maybe too many students are back on step 1, but there's a whole bunch way forward in another subject. Well, a system that uses algorithms is going to automatically push time on the schedule more to the history side than the math side, based on pace of the whole group. So once you start thinking with what can actually be done with logistics, you start to see this vision and you start to say to yourself, man, we could really help teachers with both courseware and logistics and workflow automation. So the big missing piece I'm going to talk to you about right now, that is sort of an invisible thing that most people aren't seeing, is logistics. It's the workflow. It's the way you're structured to execute. And your mutation pattern right now is, I'm going to have physical buildings and we're all going to do the same thing with walled off classrooms and people pacing down the manufacturing line in groups that are known as classes and courses. And then separately, there's going to be these online kids, right? So now I'm talking about the blend. It's all online, but now it's flipped so that it's automating the physical intersection. So there's a lab at 2:00 for the kids in cohort 1. Teacher goes in and meets. They're getting they get a pre-notification. Get ready in an hour. You got to do this. This is a totally different thing I'm talking about. And if it's freaking you out, please ask some questions right now or make some comments. I want to hear them because when we did this live with some of the preeminent districts and schools in the nation, down in Houston, it was people were flipping out. You can see them in the picture. So I'm going to show you some of the instructions that were sort of the demonstration of how this would work. So everybody moved every 30 seconds. If you were the assigned math teacher in the game, these were your instructions. I know they're probably not readable, but you can get them from the Edu Jedi leadership group if you wanted to play this game. It's not hard. You can print the game board into a smaller size and play this game with all of your school executives and, bring in some teachers. But it basically showed you what would happen when algorithms take over the workflow of the learning. And again, you have to move your mindset past the structure of whole group and classes, never leaving behind teaching. Human teachers become a premium service that is used in an extremely efficient way. So I'm just showing you this really quickly so I can get into this whole logistics conversation. And like I said, I'm expecting you guys to chat in here and make some comments along the way. So this is what's basically happening. There's been a shift in expectations from the American public during the pandemic. The consumer markets selling things like what Achieve just showed you directly to the American public. Lots of companies in that space. Some of them schools have never heard of because they don't sell to schools. They just sell straight to the consumer. That market upticked starting in March through about June by an extra $1 billion in spend because parents were shopping. They're like, oh, my school's not done. I got to get my kid to learn something. And they were buying apps. They were buying subscription websites. They were surfing around. Some of them were going, I'm just going to opt out. I'm going to go to this homeschool over here with an online service structure of content. And that's what was happening. So there's been a shift in expectations, and that expectation is not down to the Google Docs level. It's up to full animations and full algorithmic inference engines, recommendations engines, the type of stuff you can experience if you go shopping online. If you search for something this happened to me when I was redoing my kitchen, I was searching for kitchen sinks. The internet knew on my next search to start showing me ads for kitchen cabinets, like it just knows. So that's what I mean by a shift in expectations. The catering and personalization around the individual is going to be expected to go to a much higher extreme level. There's also this big shift in time and space use. And there's these new principles that I'm going to show you of hybrid logistics, what we see emerging. So first of all, we all know that many parents were frustrated with remote learning and how it was being done. Zoom meetings for 7-year-olds for 6 hours a day doesn't work. You can't do that. So suddenly there was discussions about, here's your time block for math as a teacher. I just want you to do, a 20-minute roll call roster, get the kids motivated, and then plunk them off to do whatever assignment you're giving. Now that's turning into make sure they log in to adaptive digital courseware. Maybe you're still using some documents and some images and some stuff in a loose way, but then what's happening to you as a teacher is you're getting overwhelmed with traffic. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit more. So we still have parents who are still afraid. And my bet is on the fact that there's going to be a tremendous number who won't come back at all in 2021. And then you have other group of parents and a lot of leaders in schools who they just want normal back. They really want it, and they want it right now, and for different reasons. So we were at a point in 2019 where we had 27% of the United States population had already opted out of traditional public grade and class bureaucratic structure to alternatives. Granted, 6% of that is still charters, and that's public, right? It's still public. But it was growing at 20% annually. Okay, then the pandemic happened and it took off. This is a highly conservative number, and I'm going to tell you the updated number in a second here. 2020 saw less of an increase in homeschooling than we actually thought. A lot went to privates, including all online privates, a little bit more to charters. Traditional public was losing somewhere between 3.6 and 15%. We decided to say 3.6 because some of those school districts said they thought their loss in enrollment was temporary, that they would come back. Now we just completed another survey in January, and that's not happening. So now we sit at between 33.6% of the American public opted out of traditional public to 42%. It's somewhere in there. That is huge. We're approaching 50% of the market is not attending public education in a traditional sense. Charters are still growing and all that. And we have 20% of the students who are in your traditional public school not wanting to be meaning they'll be enrolled with you, but they're not coming to the buildings. So now you have the separate option of online. That's 20%. So if you add that 20% to this 42% or so, you're approaching almost 60% of the market is like, we want a different structure. So when I'm talking to you about hybrid logistics, don't underrate how important this conversation is, because this is the behavior of the American public. And the numbers are fantastically huge. Now you have another 35% of students as you were 35% as you were delivering remote learning who weren't showing up. So they were getting the Fs that Dr. Moreno was talking about. 35% of your population just not showing up at all. Wow. And then I've had a lot of superintendents tell me that they had kids not go to any alternative at all. The high school kids, they just quit because mom and dad had to work. Maybe they were both first responders or something, and they had to watch the younger kids, right? So they're just not going to graduate. They're gone. So let's talk about what's happening now. Break it down into what's happening with space, what's happening with time. So space is, sectioning buildings still. That'll probably continue through 2021. Alternating building use by groups, house rooms, like I was showing you, moving your structure to how you execute based on everybody's in one giant place very far apart, with one oversight, and now you've restructured your teaching. Maybe dual teachers behind one subject. A lot of districts on the East Coast are doing that. Social distancing, remote. There's this new thing, especially in California, micro schooling, taking over local retail space so you can segment kids into smaller areas and they don't have to go so far. So the centralization wave that's taken over for 50 years, like let's have bigger and bigger campuses and everybody has to come to one place, is now reversing itself and redistributing into smaller units. And then there's parents overdevelopment. That's happening with a lot of parents who are like, we're going to convert our garage and 3 families in the neighborhood. We're just going to have like a homeschool right there. But we want to stay attached to the school or district. So can you just create like a little satellite sort of a thing for us where you're still overseeing us and giving us the curriculum, but we'll trade off watching the kids between these 3 families. This is all new. So time, then you've got this traditional schedule with video conferencing, remote or hybrid. You also have people doing rotating schedules like Dr. Moreno showed, AB days, AB weeks. You have things like staggered starts. Hopefully Heather, who's going to speak after me, is going to talk about that. They have a staggered start thing going on. And then you have alternate daily block schedules. So maybe it's not like the Carnegie 45-minute unit thing. Maybe it's like an hour and 30 minutes, but you're only supposed to do 20 minutes of Zoom, but then you're watching over the kid. They're supposed to be in the subject at this rest of this time, but they're not on camera. They're working independently. This is wild. This is a total mind bender for administrators, because our systems aren't even built to allow for this amount of flexibility. We tend to think of like, we're going to, have it done a certain way, and then everybody's got to conform. So the new thing is this whole idea of auto cohorting and calendaring. Now, Achieve 3000, Scholastic, Digital, there's a lot of systems out there that do this inside the content they're purveying. So they're delivering you something and it's auto cohorting kids based on pace already. They pre-test for quartile or Lexile level. They're in the right level, and then they're pacing along independently. Teachers are watching the dashboard. You can set them so that you can have some walls around that. They don't just get to go forward all the way to calculus by themselves when they're only 9th grade. That has happened for some school districts where they're like, now what do we do with you? You're already done with everything 3 years ahead of time. This is happening. So expect this sort of altered space and time thing to keep being a deeper conversation. The impact on teachers, I can't underestimate this. Like, we listened last week to some teachers out of Wyoming and Idaho and Montana. Fascinating, because they were early on the maturity scale of getting busy. I was so excited about them. They got devices. The teachers are all like scrambling. It's so heartwarming that America did this mad scramble everywhere. However, they're overwhelmed. That's what the research is showing. 74% overwhelmed or burnt out already. It's not even near the end of the year yet. So they're teaching from home. They're sometimes doing what's called, like Atlanta Public called it, simultaneous teaching. So they're teaching via Zoom and they have kids in front of them, socially distanced, who maybe can't hear them. And they walk away from the camera and the kids on camera can't hear them. This is wild. That's why we have Lightspeed sponsoring. They're going to talk to you guys about what's happening with them. So people can hear all the kids. There's also this thing called the frontline and backline teaching team. So let's say your curriculum isn't ready. Well, then what are you going to do? You got to be still front and center in front of the kids. So you're like, okay, scramble and do some social emotional stuff for a little while somebody else is building all the digital curriculum. And then they feed it to the frontline teacher and the teacher does that. You're going to expect to see a lot more of that. That's the way the news business operates, by the way. Like the person that's on TV at night in front of you, when they don't script themselves. They don't do all the research and build the show. They just arrive and they're given a script. And then they're the performance of that teachable moment, so to speak, just like teachers are. But right now we have it structured so the teacher does everything. What I'm talking to you about is that's in question now, because it's a really big overwhelm for teachers. So I'm not going to go through all this, but I'm going to say that, Fresno Unified, good friend of ours, Kurt Madden, I'm sure some of you know him. He started talking to us in early spring about their immediate change in attitude, which was, you don't have a captive audience anymore. We all think that, by law, you have to send your kid to school. So we're traditional public education. Of course, we're going to get most of the kids. That is over. You're in an extremely competitive landscape, and you don't have a competitive, a guaranteed audience anymore. So they decided to call a teacher a coach or mentor. Just get over the teaching sage on the stage thing. That's done. And curriculum must be designed to work and shift in all three of those environments: traditional with PPE, masks, social distancing, blended campus, remote learning, and distance learning only from home. They wanted to be all of those. And that's really pretty much what everyone's had to do. So the screen learning truth I want to just make sure we put in here is, because you're going to have a lot of people talk to you about too much screen time. We pulled this study a couple of years ago. This was the largest study ever done. 120,000, 15-year-olds. This is a really big study. And it basically says the optimum is 4.5 hours. If you exceed that, it's not good for the developing brain. So can you use all 4.5 hours? Probably not. You should be using less than that, because kids are going to want their gaming time at home and, texting and chatting with friends. So then it becomes, what is the optimum for you to use as screen learning time in school? And I'm going to quantify for you also what screen learning really is versus screen creativity. Okay, screen creation. So screen learning is straight ingestion, sitting on a Zoom and not commenting in like we're hoping a lot of you guys do today. You should only use 2.5 hours of that during the whole day. That's really, like you're just straight delivering like a television of digital learning in any form, right? Video, courseware, teacher talking to you. Don't go past 2.5 hours. Now you got to split that 2.5 hours up across the whole day and all your teachers, if it's high school, middle school. And the rest of it can be student creating their own, digital comic book to demonstrate their learning, typing up an essay, interacting with other kids online on a project that they're supposed to figure out together. Some of the active digital courseware like Achieve has, like Scholastic has, a lot of the companies have this stuff. That's different in your mind than the straight up pure ingestion, okay? So that whole group, including video conferencing, small group or direct instruction, that really is the time that's active on behalf of the student. And it can be on the screen. It's not included in that other 2.5 hours, but it has to be they're doing something. They're not just sitting and getting. Okay, so the big questions really are this space, time use, how you're using people, how workflow is working. So I'm going to show you how this basic organizing principle is changing. We're in this middle group, leaving the whole group world of grades, classes, courses, and this pyramid bureaucracy. And we're already in mutation, and the mutation's in the direction of individualization, also known as personalization. That mutation during the pandemic just went like wildfire. And where it's going is a individualized learning center. So everything is around the individual. So you're feeling this sort of uncomfortableness because we're living in the old world while trying to be the new one. We haven't really changed structure. So that's going to be more of a distributed service model. Extra liminal means maybe your schools are going to be using that one brilliant science teacher from 3 districts away or another state away for 1 unit in your day. Extra liminal means you are thinking like a network, not just a building with physical people in it. And that's going to change everything. So also the change in this organizational structure means that the intersection of how you use the humans to their great human quality could potentially be algorithmic, like Uber is. Like Uber goes, oh, you want to ride? There's a driver right over there. I'm going to bring him over. And then you have the transactional moment, and then you go your separate ways. Those live teaching moments will then be the discussion that we'll all be having of the perfection of the art of teaching. Like, what is it? Is it going to remain the art of corralling all 30 kids at once all the time, and then disciplining them, blah, 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 blah? Or is it going to be, hey, you don't seem to get this concept in algebra. I'm going to spend some extra time with you. Direct instruction is the human potential that we're under leveraging. So what I'm talking about is not having technology bypass teachers. I'm talking about having technology come up to such a high level that it's now able to manifestly use the greatest components of human teaching only, not using them for everything else. So that's really what we're looking at. So the problem that came out during this last year has been that a lot of places had teachers doing live teaching plus virtual teaching. And then notice all these arrows. This is just to show a concept. Distributing, collecting all assignments to every single student, and then having to, get all those back and then looking at. So if you can imagine, you're getting all this email on every single thing. And then you're also having to manage the traffic of what resources, you're picking them out, you're distributing them. Maybe you're just saying, go log in through ClassLink. This stuff is already there, but you're still directing attention. This directing of attention part is really unautomated. And it should be way more automated. Digital courseware does that inherently within itself. But outside of that, we have a huge traffic load, and there's not very many executives noticing that huge traffic load, because it was different when it was a physical thing, right? Like, it's just like, here's your assignment and pass it back to the kids behind you when you're physically there. You hand a piece of paper, or you just tell them or write it on the board and everybody copies it down in their notebook. Simple, like that's not traffic. But now we have a totally different scenario. So I'm going to skip past this one. The reality is that if you were trying to personalize, it would look sort of like this, which to me is insane. It's not a human job. Here, Johnny go into this software and Isabella go into these 6 other ones. In the meantime, this group over here and that group over there and this group, all different. This looks like air traffic control to me. It's not a human teaching job. So when we talk about hybrid, here's what's coming. And I only have a couple more minutes, but first, what you do typically in most schools is somebody in the district level or state level lays out your standards and says, here's all the stuff you have to teach to. You have to have every student meet these standards. And so you look over at those, and they're normally, some sort of documentish form. And then you have to plot them on the calendar. Normally the districts do this. That means you take maybe 2 of the math standards and say, thou in 6th grade, thou shalt teach these 2 standards week 1, and so forth. So you're plotting them, but normally they're hidden over here in a document form. They're kind of hard to sort of bring into the rest of everything else you're doing. So then as a teacher, you're looking at those. You're looking at your annual calendar schedule and saying, okay, I'm given this hour and these days, and then I got this hour over here and that hour over there, and then we're not in school on Fridays. So when am I going to do this? Okay, and then you got to build your lesson. That's a lot of work. So the future looks to us like the sequencing, this part D of what to do step by step, will be pulled up the chain of command so that it's using teachers for this actual teaching function. I'm going to give you, this understanding, lecture, conferencing together as one of the steps rather than the all-encompassing step. So please ask me questions along the way here, because I only have a couple more things to share with you. This is what it would look like to sort of build, using algorithms, an auto-cohorting logistics infrastructure that would ride above your LMS or your single sign-on or all of your pieces. So this is managing the calendar in a multi-dimensional way and managing auto-cohorting and managing, which kids are moving where and the attention of the teacher. It's a different way to think about things, but everything we're seeing as research is pointing to this. So let's say you started here down at this orange piece. You got to do your pre-reading for social studies. The very next thing is a teacher intersection for a lecture. But look, there's only 3 of us that have made it this far. So there's a red light for me. So it tells me I'm going to skip over here. And then then once the cohort is full, I jump back over. And now I have a real live class. I can either arrive on campus or not. And then I do the rest of my steps all the way through. So the hybrid logistics would personalize for every student, whether they're on campus or off. And you would move to something like at the bottom of this slide, dynamic real-time learning management. It's already there in most of the software. It's just not all pulled together necessarily. All right, so I'm going to go over this in more detail tomorrow with Chris McMurray. This is the forward-looking architecture of all of your pieces. I know it looks like a mind bender. It's really actually a very simple way to understand all of the software that you're confronted with trying to serve out in order to arrive at this future of really organized, personalized learning. So where we're actually building this right now, this hybrid logistics, is Learning Counsel is building a beta sample piece inside Insidenostory.com, which is our social media site. The way it will work is master scheduling by segments, by weekly, by day rotations, by day blocks, included in auto cohorting within all steps and all auto calendaring. So once kids hit the cohort required, it auto calendars with the teacher and all students. I know this is a different way of thinking, and I've gone over a lot of material really quickly. So I'm not going to go over the rest of it, but I want you to know you're going to get a badge for just listening to this last half hour. You're now a hybrid logistics granted badge inside Insidenostory. So we have to make sure that you are a member inside Insidenostory, so you get that.